The global sports sector is estimated to be worth between 480 to 620 billion US dollars. Hosting major events comes with their own challenges from a logistics and security perspective. Precedents from around the world illustrate challenges which major sporting events and, for that matter, other mass footfall events pose. These include the risk of stampedes, crowd trouble, logistics for safe evacuation, structural audits including fire safety, among other issues. In India, law enforcement assures total security, as is evident from the fact that no major security threat has been reported in recent times, despite, for instance, the footfall in cricket or football matches. Considering the range of issues and the importance of development of stadiums and related facilities, what measures should the promoters undertake and how should visitors to these sites be aware of their own role is what we would explore in this episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of India Risk Report. And in this episode, we are looking at the safety and security of events that have major footfalls, particularly with reference to large sporting events that seems to have become more and more popular in India. The industry for sporting events and sports-related activities globally is anywhere between $480 to $620 billion. And India is fast catching up because the price for hosting events and the add-on issues with it, the security, the equipment, the advertising, sports tourism, and what have you, have raised the costs enormously. And we have three experts who have hands-on understanding of issues related with large events in general and sporting events in particular. We have Mr. Harjinder Singh with us, who is running an event management company, but he is also been the chef de mission of the Indian team that went for the Winter Olympics recently. And then we have the very distinguished Mr. Neeraj Kumar, IPS, former Commissioner of Police in Delhi, and also man behind the Commonwealth Games, the Asian Games, and the heads of government meetings and several other large activities that he has overseen very carefully. And we have our very own Colonel Raj Yadav, who's Vice President of IIRIS, and who also was involved with the Commonwealth Games and many other large initiatives. So, Colonel Yadav, my first question to you, having looked at it objectively, because you were not part of officialdom, you were not part of the Sarkari Mehkama that went into organizing, though you've been earlier in the services, what did you think we lacked with the management of the Commonwealth Games? Leave the controversies aside on the Games itself.
So, well, to be very honest, we did a very, very good job during Commonwealth Games. Yes, we had a pie of a little bit of controversies. I basically think that only two regions which were of concern to the international community and, of course, the domestic community and the sporting fraternity was, one was the security environment which was existing in the region at that time, and particularly in India. We had 2008 Mumbai attack, then it was followed up in April 2010 itself. We had the Chinnaswamy bomb explosion. Then we had just 1 month prior to the Commonwealth Games, we had an incident in Jama Masjid where two foreigners were injured, and it followed up with a crude car bomb. So that was just a concern, but hats off to our agencies and forces which took care of it and made sure that none of these concerns spilled over to the Games. Second aspect, which probably had a bit of fear in the minds of international community, was the infrastructure readiness of the organizing committee. That was probably due to the reason that there were many of different agencies involved in conducting the Games. So of course the coordination and the hand-holding of each and every agency mattered a lot, which did happen in a very, very good shape. But yes, it was a bit late, to be honest.
Okay. Mr. Kumar, sir, since security is a very, very important aspect of making the smooth flow of any big event, especially sporting event going through, and experience has shown us that in the 2011 India-Pakistan cricket match at Mohali, more than 3,000 policemen were used up. And again, in the Jalandhar Kabaddi tournament in 2014, over 1,000 policemen were used up. I mean, if more could be spared, I'm sure they would have been put in out there. So where do you see the mix and match between how people do it abroad and how we are doing it? Is ours very manpower intense, or is there some way to get in technologies to then make the policemen actually be supported by technology?
Sure, technology is a big force multiplier, and technology is being slowly inducted. But our country has the problem of numbers, because whenever a major sporting event happens, a large number of people turn up. And we have to accept that they are not very well disciplined lot who know that you have to form a queue, for instance, as a matter of habit. So to manage huge crowds in India, the surest way is to have more police presence. And should something go wrong, the larger the number of policemen are there, the easier it is to control the situation. But it is, I fully accept the fact that the deployment oftentimes is too much, and it is overly conspicuous, and there is a need to do it imaginatively. There should be more plainclothes policemen deployed in
but would people listen to a plainclothes policeman? Because I think half the effect is of the khaki wardis.
That's the point. So it is the local conditions and the local superintendent of police. He has to decide where he has to strike a balance. But an attempt should be made, and many places it is being made. Even during the Commonwealth Games, we had large number of policemen in track suits deployed in the field of play, because we could not have possibly put people in uniform in the field of play. Also, one difference which exists between our way of tackling these events and our counterparts abroad is that they outsource most of the activities to private security agencies, and things are managed very well. For instance, say Wimbledon games, you will hardly find any police presence. Even in a cricket match, perhaps if you are lucky, you will get 4 to 5 police officers to be present at a venue. Most of it is outsourced, and because people are very disciplined, people know, so there is no problem.
I think, sir, the issue is what kind of people you are dealing with.
Quite right.
Quite clearly, I mean, somebody who ends up going for Wimbledon, even if he tries to create a ruckus, others is going to ask him to shut up or whatever. But Mr. Harjinder, you've been to an international Winter Olympics event, I thought somewhere in China, wasn't it? Pyeongchang. Okay. So the thing is that how do you find those people are able to control the crowds there? Again, South Korea, North Korea, by and large are similar people. They have different regimes. But I was more concerned about the experience that people have had in countries like China, where large number of people are also available and want to visit functions.
Yeah, I just been to China. I mean, 2 days back, I was there at the 2022 Olympic Organizing Committee office. I could see on the board they had already made plans for each of the stadiums, the security arrangements, the access of the traffic coming in, the walking traffic, the mobile traffic, I mean, which includes vehicles for athletes. There's a separate road altogether which gets shut. Pedestrian traffic is directed from other side, which is not, I mean, they are parallel roads. They are not intersecting at any point of time. The vehicles get searched at much outer gate. I mean, it's not closer to the stadium. Once that bus gets sealed, it goes straight to the locker room. It never gets stopped anywhere. Similarly, for pedestrians, the first checking is at the external gate of the stadium, and they walk through to the main, I mean, audience seating arena. they have every agency, every country has their own plans. In India, we have differently, they have it differently over there. The infrastructure so constructed over there is already planned for these kind of eventualities. It could be.
So are you suggesting that our security infrastructure is an afterthought?
I will say so, but if you see in India, we have no event arena except for sporting venues. So if you have Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, if we end up having say 2,000 or 5,000 cars coming in, the whole system gets blocked. It's thanks to the metro during Commonwealth that most of the traffic came in through metro. But again, the metro access point to the main Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, it was clogged. So you had people walking all around the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium to get to their gate. So if you see, Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium doesn't have many access roads. And this is something which has to be planned by government.
So obviously you've touched on another very important aspect, and as also has the former police commissioner Mr. Neeraj Kumar and Colonel Yadav all have brought out 2 or 3 key aspects. The first, to my mind, is the need for proper planning and forethought well before the crowd comes as to storm you over and deluge you with sheer numbers. And the second is the attitude of the Indian public. As the Honorable Commissioner said, that we are not used to queuing up. So that in itself needs somebody to lagao a lathi and tell them to get into a line before you can get your ticket. And equally important is the fact that in our infrastructure, security seems to be coming in and safety seems to be coming in as an afterthought, and not something that we should be laying primacy and importance to, because if that is wrong, the entire event can go up in smoke. But we'll come back after break to look at the other challenges in large public events, particularly sporting events. Welcome back. We are looking at the challenges that we face in India from organizing large public and sporting events, and the fact that such events can easily get out of hand. I'd like to quote an international example. I mean, there have been cases for the last 15 odd years or more that in sports stadiums there can be explosions, as they were in France. There can be explosions and attacks like suicide bombers as in Manchester, and more recently an Islamic State terrorist is being tried in a UK court from April this year for trying to plot on a World Cup stadium in Russia, most recently finished event. So I'll go to Mr. Neeraj Kumar, sir. The policemen who are deputed to guard, it seems to be sometimes that they go in for an overkill to ensure security well before an event. A classic example is that in the Under-17 FIFA World Cup in Delhi, there was a shortage of drinking water. But people were not allowed to bring in even drinking water bottles. So the temperatures were warm, water bottles were not allowed, people ended up having to drink water from toilets. So where do we draw the line between could do and must do? What do you think should be the advice to the police?
No, allowing water bottles to a stadium in today's day and times is generally not advisable. Just like when you are boarding an aircraft, you're not allowed to take a bottle of water from outside. Once you are inside, then maybe you can pick up a bottle of water. And the second thing is that the problem that was created in FIFA Under-17 games here is a classic example of lack of coordination between the stadium management or the games management and the security. It is a requirement that water bottles will not be allowed in. Therefore, the local stadium management should ensure availability of water at the stadium in ample quantity and at cheap rates. If that was done, this crisis would not have happened. So there is quite often there is a mismatch or lack of coordination between the security agencies and the local
It
organizations.
seems to be that we are always targeting a kind of zero-sum situation where if you want to make some place secure, the first is you seal it off. And you don't let people come in for maybe 24 or 48 hours before. And while a certain amount of scanning and all has to go through, but I think we do tend to go in for an overkill, and it does. I mean, the same story with the roads of Delhi. I'm sure you haven't experienced it as much as we have as lesser mortals. But what can be a match? Is there the security agency, if the management committee doesn't get back to you, should the security agency get onto the aggressive and tell the management committee, based on past experience, why aren't you coordinating this aspect?
See, the hard reality is that the security agencies do tell the stadium management that this is what our requirement is. We will seal the stadium at so and so hour, and there is a set protocol for it. It is better to have do an overkill rather than to repent later. And
Well,
in present day security scenario, and particularly in our country, it is better to do an overkill than to regret later that had we done this, this would not have happened.
Okay, Mr. Harjinder, do you think this overkill idea is a good idea, particularly in the light of the fact that you have initiated a company that organizes events? You're looking at events in a very big way. It's not just sporting events. You're into so many other event initiatives. So what has been your experience between the management of an event and the power of the sarkar, where the security agency comes in?
I don't think so. Government has got a role into this. It's the event producer. It could be the local football federation, which is supposed to be providing this facility to the spectators. It's got nothing to do with security or any other thing. I have had incidents where bottles were allowed in, and the bottles were thrown onto the stage. That happened again in one of Jawaharlal Nehru concert. It was way back in 98, 99. It had around 1 lakh of people over there, and because of whatever reasons, the water balls actually became missiles. So one of them actually landed onto the console where the entire sound was there, and we had to use our jackets as umbrella. Bottles, I mean, like a recent tender.
But that they could do with water bottles they buy inside.
No, that should not be allowed at all. It has to be only glasses.
But how do you deal with a hot country like India?
No, you have alternatives for that. No, you have these water dispensers and glasses.
Okay.
Pouches, and there are a lot of many things. I mean, one has to be. I have done that. I have done it in most of my events. Another thing which is critical is that event producer is to be responsible for this. He should have that moolah to actually supply drinking water, which never happens. A recent example is that I was filling up a tender for World Hockey League Hockey Championship in Orissa. They have provision for 3 lakh water to be distributed each day at the minimal rates. It is part of the tender. So everyone feels, I mean, now this is Orissa government. They have thought out that water has to be done. Similarly, other organizers can do it. Government has more funds compared to a private organizer. Private organizer will always short charge. I mean, they will not allow, I mean, water to be distributed. They like to make money out of it. But in that case, I mean, event manager and the police, they are always in sync. Without being in hand and glove, we can't run an event.
Okay.
So it is the event producer. If he wants 20 exit points, will be providing them 20 exit points. 20 exit points also means deputing at least 8 security guards at each of these points. That again, the private security guard is taking care of the inner, the external is taken care by the police, and field of play again, depending on what kind we have, whether it is going to be men in uniform or it's going to be in track suits. But obviously, khaki has more power than a private security guard. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I mean, the thing is, the power of authority that comes with governmental authority is at least to be taken very seriously. Colonel Raj, there is a problem in India in terms of when large crowds get in and they become unmanageable everywhere. Now, that's another very Indian thing, that since we're used to so many people, our discomfort level with large numbers and patience for large numbers, and therefore raising the alarm at discomfort level is much later than it would be in Western countries or Eastern countries, particularly in Western countries where numbers are not that many. So, how do you deal with this fact that it's an Indian thing that if the crowd is not complaining of discomfort and some good Samaritan lands up out there and says the crowd is unhappy and discomfortable, so do something, stop the number of people coming in. I'll give you an example. We just had the Wagah border, a new stadium, and earlier on Wagah border there used to be something like 20 to 30,000 people who used to come and view the flag lowering at a major day. On Independence Day, Wagah border would have more number of people. The stadium can take 50,000 people now, but even now there were a couple of thousands who were waiting outside to get in over and above the statement. So India doesn't have a problem of numbers. So how do you handle events where the problem of numbers is not in the mind of the people but of the organizer and the stretched infrastructure?
So I fully appreciate the point which you've added on. Generally what happens if our stadium has got a capacity of 60,000, you find with people invited on complimentary passes and additional people coming in, it oversurges. However, I have seen in the past that our policing is capable of handling this kind of surge when it happens. But the only point which I want to bring out is they are at times very, very tough. They are at times, they are not very thoughtful. See, any sporting event or any event which happens is for fun. People come there to enjoy. So at times we are very strict. We don't allow them to carry maybe a water bottle, which they, of course, they have their own concerns. And they don't allow them to carry maybe a stick with a flag because it's also considered to be, can be harmful for the spectators as well as for the players. So our agencies have to strike a balance as to what is the requirement of the event. The requirement of the event is to enjoy that spectacle and accordingly put yourself or your men or your infrastructure in place. We do it at the last moment. We don't think about it maybe 6 months or 7 months prior to it. We keep on changing our policies from day to day. Even on the opening ceremony day, I know there was such kind of changes happening at the last moment, minute to minute changes. A VIP is coming, they are changing the plan.
That's a very important point you've raised. My suggestion would be that people in the know, both who are organizers and experienced policemen as Mr. Kumar, they should work out a standard operating procedure and make it available on the net that any public gathering that you intend to attend, a sporting gathering, these are do's and don'ts. Like for instance, you don't go to the aircraft now with your phone charger in your checked-in baggage. You will carry it in your hand baggage. So if we start repeating it and if these events become more and more public, perhaps that could be one way to educate our masses and ensure less inconvenience at the entry point. But I'm sort of thinking really far ahead. As of now, I think more aggressive advertising a few days before the event would solve the problem. But gentlemen, we're totally out of time. Thank you very much for all your very wise inputs. It's very clear that sporting events in India are here to stay, and more sporting events are not just those which are advertising and money-making bonanzas, but they are also huge security challenges that they provide, because at the end of the day, one attack at a sporting event can undo the entire atmosphere of the good work that people and officials and all the well-meaning citizens who work behind it have put in. Let's hope for the best and let's keep our fingers crossed. Until then, goodbye and thank you for watching.